You mentioned your father, and anybody I've talked to in preparation for this or any research I've done, he's always been brought up in a significant manner. And I liked this story because it shows that we aren't so far from history. And your father driving out the KKK back in the day, seeing your father have that fearlessness throughout his life, how are you able to use that or see him use that fearlessness in how you approach every situation in life?
Yeah, so obviously that happened early. I think I was 3 or 4 years old when that happened. But there's certain things with kinfolk that's passed along through the generations. Racism, when you grew up in segregation, racism was real. It's not something you read about, it's something you lived. I lived it. There's places we couldn't go. It was white only. This was in early 60s. This is before the Civil Rights Movement. This is before John F. Kennedy and Lyndon Johnson passed the Civil Rights Bill. That's why we had all that upheaval in the country. Riots in Detroit, Chicago, Martin Luther King March in Selma. You can go down the list. But I was raised in the South, in North Carolina. I didn't know anything else. That tobacco market where my dad worked had 3 water fountains, white, colored, and other. Had 3 bathrooms, white, colored, and other. It wasn't a big deal. That's the way it was. If I'd have went up there and, everybody kind of stayed with your own race back then. And then when I got older, one of the people that really inspired me was Thurgood Marshall. So I majored in political science. Later, I got a double major in health and physical education. I wanted to be an attorney at the time, and I wanted to go help the oppressed, defend the innocent against oppression and injustice, and that always rang true with me. And then when you couple that with the KKK stories and what was happening in our area at the time, or Alabama, or Georgia, or Mississippi, South Carolina, Tennessee, it was tough for our parents because they had the brunt of it. When you're younger, your parents shelter you from those things. But I would see it and I remember it. But I think our family used it, as most families where we were from, I think we used it to get closer together and close ranks. And I could tell you some other stories, but I think all of your experiences that you have over life, whether they're good or bad, shape you into the person that you have. So every experience I had, whether it was good or bad, I appreciate them all.
When you're oppressed and have a certain group of people looking at you a certain type of way, is there any resentment?
I didn't know any different. So had I was raised in a society where that was never there, and then I experienced it, I would have seen the difference. But when you're raised with it, that was just an assumption. My father was a foreman of a tobacco crew. Back then they'd have rows and rows and rows of tobacco that was ready for the sale. All tobacco companies in North Carolina and Virginia would follow the sales, and Winston-Salem cigarettes, chewing tobacco, cigars, whatever, all the companies, and that's how they would get their product. And that's where we worked, in those hot tin-roof tobacco markets where there might be anywhere from 1,000 to 1,400 250-pound sheets lined up from one side to the other, end to end. And our job was to match the ticket with the buyer, put them on top of each other and push them to the door, and they would take them to their plants to process them, the tobacco. But, you get talked down to. People scold you. I saw him do this. I saw him scold my father because one of his workers didn't have the right tag with the right tag. So he'd bring us together and said, we can't make these mistakes or we're going to get replaced. So I saw that, but that wasn't the first time. It wasn't the last time. But we outlasted it.
Whoa! Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah.